Hey, this is Clay and Sonia. One of the key elements in any relationship, especially with your spouse, is trust. And we want to talk about trust a little bit today. Your spouse needs to know that they can trust you. And what is trust, though? We define it this way. Trust is a willingness to take a risk and to make yourself vulnerable to another. So willingness to take the risk and also vulnerability. Both are involved when it comes to trust.
So trust is vital in all your relationships. Everywhere you go, you really, really do need to be trusted, but especially in your intimate relationship.
Mm-hmm. Your spouse needs to know they can depend on you, that your word, if you will, the old adage, your word is your bond, that when you keep your word, that they know that that's going to be there and they're going to follow, and you're going to follow through as part of that.
Because trust can be really fragile. Certain actions can irreparably harm your trust. We're going to talk about some of these.
First off is failing to show up on time. Showing up when you say you will is really critical with that, because if you don't, then it begins to plant seeds of doubt and they begin to question your trustworthiness. What's going on? Why aren't you showing up? Why aren't you calling me, if you're going to be late, etc.
Not walking your walk. So saying what you're going to do and then doing it. Mm-hmm. When you don't do this, then people question do you really mean that? And this is really, I think, a key to check in with yourself. A lot of times we will say yes to something, and we're not really committed to it.
And in that lack of commitment, what happens is sometimes we feel forced that we're having to do that. And you're not going to follow through and do the things you say if you're feeling like you're being pressured into doing it. Do it because you want the relationship to be good and for it to thrive.
And if you don't want to do it, don't say that you're going to do something. Mm-hmm. Come up with a compromise or something else that would meet both of your needs.
There's always solutions. Look for one.
Mm-hmm.
Refusing to admit mistakes. Nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. In fact, most of us like to over-affirm that we're right. But in a relationship, that can be very detrimental to it. You're going to be wrong sometimes, every once in a while. And if you want your spouse to trust you, you're admitting that, hey, I was wrong with that one. That's huge in that, because then they have the expectation that there's free flow between you, that you can both be wrong, you can both be right at times, but it's not something that's catastrophic to your relationship.
And it's not a character quality a lot of times. When you're just like, oh yeah, I made a mistake here. It doesn't mean you're a horrible person. It doesn't mean you're a mistake. It just means, oh yeah, I'm not perfect. If you don't listen to others, that really erodes trust. Mm-hmm. So if somebody's sharing their emotions with you and you're just kind of distracted on your phone, not really paying attention, then they're going to be less likely to share something.
Watching
and you're going to miss. Yes.
Turn the TV off.
Interrupting them is kind of a way that you show that you're not really interested.
Letting your emotions get the better of you, whether it be a bad temper or being melancholy or whatever it could be. If you lose you too quickly, that's not a good sign. And for your partner, it reinforces that they can't trust you to your bad news, and sometimes just to even talk, because people are so quick on the trigger.
So taking some breaths before you respond is a really good way to okay, I can do this.
And if you're giving the message with it, asking, hey, is it a good time to talk about this or not? And let them have a chance to say no.
Often white lies. Mm-hmm. So if you give these tiny little white lies to get out of sticky situations, that's dishonest, and that breeds mistrust.
One of the reasons why we do those white lies is, one, we're trying to perform and make everybody happy. And sometimes, two, is we just are not sure that we're still going to be liked if we tell the truth. And both of those are at play there, and that gets us into trouble, because once your partner starts seeing you've been lying to them, even the little white lies, that trust begins to erode.
Or if you're lying to other people and your partner overhears it, then they're going to be thinking, oh my gosh, what are they telling me as well? Refusing to compromise. If you're never willing to compromise and tell others that you tell others that your needs are more important than yours. This is the way it has to be. This is what I want. I'm not going to listen to what you have to say.
My way or the highway.
Yeah. How can they trust you to look out for them and their needs?
Relationships are never a one-way street when it comes to this. You both have to have times where you compromise and you're willing to learn what's really going on with your partner. If you're in the place where you're just refusing to compromise with it too, you need to really take a look in the mirror with it. And if you're experiencing this with a partner, you need to really address this issue with it, because everybody needs to be able to compromise. You don't share personal matters. You'll just share the basics and talk about the light bill, and maybe we'll have sex once a quarter and we'll talk about things, but things that are in depth or could be troublesome, or you just kind of avoid it like the plague with it too. You lack that sharing. And when you do, it puts up a wall between you and your partner. And these walls cause distrust.
So let's talk about solutions. What are some action steps? So this is like, look at these things. Are you subtly sabotaging your relationship through causing distrust? If you're always late, there are some things that you can do. You can set an alarm. If you're constantly telling those white lies, just kind of own those types of things.
Sometimes in appointments with clients, sometimes I go over in my appointments before I'm headed home, but I always make it a point to, like if I get in the car, to call and say, hey, I'm on my way home. Why? That establishes and builds that trust.
So action step 2 is a little bit tricky because you do have to be vulnerable here, but you ask your partner to weigh in on your trustworthiness. Sometimes it can be hard to hear what they have to say, but it really will be worth it. You need to know what they're seeing, because oftentimes we're blind to our own stuff. And but your relationship will benefit as you become someone that can be trusted.
Now, if you're the one sharing and you're the one doing the weighing in on the trustworthiness, I want to suggest to you that you use I language as much as possible. I am experiencing this. I feel this, etc. If you go immediately to you don't or etc., when you use the you word, it oftentimes can feel accusational. So what are you experiencing? I'm feeling this. I'm seeing this. I would like this. Use your I language, and it will be received more effectively than using you.
And it's important not to look at these things as shaming or blaming type things. They're just like, we all have things we need to work on. We all have things in our relationship that we can work on, and it can go both ways. How can I trust you more? How can you trust me more? It can be both ways, and you don't want them to say mean things about you, but just like factual and without a lot of emotion in this.
And take the feedback and process it. Be a learner. Go into it, to try to get some understanding of what little tweaks that maybe you can do to be more trustworthy with that. If you ever have a hair trigger temper, though, you need to investigate some strategies to control it, because you're creating a scenario where you're not going to be trustworthy, and it's not going to be safe for your partner. So, and there may be more going on in the story too, if you find that that's a continual problem as well. As we all should be in a place where we learn to manage our emotions and not having them manage us.
Because really, it's about learning and growing. When we have issues come up in our relationship, then it's that growth needs to happen. And we can grow together as partners. If we're willing to look at these things, we can help each other to kind of like, well, what is underneath those lies and things like that, and to be honest and vulnerable about those without judgment. So thanks for listening.
Make trust a priority, though, in your relationship. Remember, it's a willingness to take a risk and to make yourself vulnerable to another. What are you doing to help your partner experience that? Thanks for listening. Hope you have a good day.